It was a bright Saturday morning, but Eunice couldn't enjoy the warmth of the day. A sharp pain in her stomach had been bothering her for days, and today, it felt worse than ever. The pain was deep and strong, and Eunice didn't know what to do. Her mother, Mrs. Elizabeth, was very worried, so they rushed to the hospital for help. At the hospital, Eunice was examined by doctors. They ran some tests, and then they did an ultrasound. The doctors stared at the screen, their eyes wide with shock. Eunice felt a cold chill as the doctor said, "There are 7 large eggs inside your womb." Everyone in the room was speechless. How could there be eggs inside her? The doctors had never seen anything like it before. The doctors quickly decided to perform surgery to remove the eggs. Eunice was nervous, but hopeful that the surgery would make her feel better. After hours of careful work, the doctors finished, but they were still confused. The eggs were gone, but no one could explain how or why they had been there. Just a few days later, Eunice returned to the hospital. Her pain had come back stronger than before. Mrs. Elizabeth was terrified and stayed by her daughter's side as the doctors ran more tests. They were puzzled because the eggs were gone, but the pain wouldn't go away. This time, when the doctors checked Eunice again, they found something even worse. Maggots moving inside her womb. The doctors were shocked and scared. They had never seen such a thing before. How could this happen? What was causing the pain? No one had answers. Mrs. Elizabeth could no longer hide her worry. Her daughter was sick and no one could explain why. She stayed with Eunice in the hospital, praying and hoping that somehow her daughter would get better. But it seemed like nothing could stop the pain. Seeing her daughter suffering, Mrs. Elizabeth turned to someone she trusted, Pastor David. He was a kind and wise man, known for solving problems that were not just physical, but also spiritual. Mrs. Elizabeth hoped that he could help, as she felt something strange was happening to Eunice. Pastor David sensed something spiritual was at play. After asking Eunice and her mother some questions, he suspected that her boyfriend, Leo, might be involved in dark actions. Leo had always been close to Eunice, but Pastor David believed something dark was connected to him. Mrs. Elizabeth and Pastor David decided to confront Leo, Eunice's boyfriend. They were worried that he might have done something dark that caused Eunice's suffering. When they arrived at his apartment, Leo was surprised to see them. His eyes widened when they spoke. It turned out that Leo had been involved in a dangerous ritual meant to bring him wealth. But this ritual had caused Eunice's suffering. Leo confessed, and his actions had unknowingly placed Eunice in danger. Mrs. Elizabeth was heartbroken, but she knew she had to help her daughter. After confronting Leo, Eunice's health slowly started to improve. Pastor David performed a prayer to cleanse her, and the maggots inside her womb disappeared. The doctors were amazed at how quickly she began to recover. Eunice felt better, and her pain was finally going away. Eunice learned a great lesson. She understood that sometimes, life brings challenges that we can't explain. But with faith, family, and support, we can overcome them. Eunice promised herself to never again be part of anything harmful or dark. She had the love of her mother, Pastor David, and the strength to move forward. Days passed, and Eunice felt like she was finally returning to herself. The pain that had once controlled her life was gone. She felt a deep sense of gratitude for everyone who had helped her, especially her mother and Pastor David. She knew now that she would never take her health for granted again. As Eunice healed physically, she also began to heal emotionally. The ordeal had shaken her, but it also opened her eyes to the strength she never knew she had. She was learning to love herself in ways she had never done before. And this new sense of self-worth was changing her life. The bond between Eunice and her mother, Mrs. Elizabeth, grew even stronger. They spent more time together, sharing stories and laughter. Eunice knew her mother's love was the greatest gift she could ever have. Mrs. Elizabeth was proud to see how much her daughter had grown. Though Eunice was healing, there was still something weighing on her heart: Leo. Their relationship had been strained since the truth about his involvement in the dark ritual came to light. Eunice wasn't sure if she could ever trust him again. The damage had been done. One evening, Eunice called Leo to meet. She needed to confront him and understand why he had done what he did. Leo arrived at her apartment looking nervous. They sat down, and Eunice began to speak. "I thought you cared for me," she said, her voice shaking. "Why did you hurt me like that?" Leo apologized deeply, explaining that he had been desperate for wealth and had made a terrible mistake. He had never intended to hurt Eunice. His actions had been selfish, and he realized too late the pain they had caused. After Leo's apology, Eunice was left to make a decision. She needed time to think about what to do. Should she forgive him? Could their relationship ever go back to what it was? She knew that only time would tell. In the end, Eunice chose to forgive Leo. She understood that everyone makes mistakes, but the most important thing was learning from them. They both had a long road ahead, but Eunice was ready to heal, both in heart and in spirit. Eunice and her mother decided to visit Pastor David again. They wanted to thank him for his support during her recovery and to seek his blessing for the next step in their journey. Pastor David welcomed them warmly, and they spent hours talking and praying together. Through her journey, Eunice discovered that she had a new purpose: to help others who were struggling with their own challenges. She wanted to share her story with others, to let them know that even when things seem impossible, there is always hope. Eunice decided to pursue a career in counseling and motivational speaking. She wanted to help people, especially young women, find the strength within themselves to overcome adversity. It wasn't going to be easy, but she was ready. As time went on, Eunice developed a deep friendship with Pastor David. They would often meet to talk, share experiences, and laugh together. Pastor David became a mentor to her, guiding her in her new career path and life journey. Eunice's family was supportive every step of the way. Mrs. Elizabeth stood by her daughter's side, proud of how strong she had become. Together, they faced every challenge that came their way, knowing that family was the foundation of all strength. Though Eunice had overcome many obstacles, new challenges always seemed to appear. But now she faced them with confidence. She knew that she could handle whatever came her way because she had the love of her family, her faith, and her own strength. As Eunice started her new career, there were moments of self-doubt. She wondered if she was truly capable of helping others. But whenever those thoughts crept in, she remembered her journey and all the people who had helped her. She was strong, and she could do this. One day, while speaking at a local event, Eunice shared her story with a room full of young women. Her words resonated deeply with them, and she realized that no matter how hard the journey was, it was all worth it if she could help just one person. Eunice was surprised when Leo reached out to her again. This time, he wasn't apologizing. He was offering his support. He had changed, and he wanted to be a part of her life in a positive way. Eunice was hesitant, but appreciated his sincerity. After much reflection, Eunice decided to forgive Leo. She wasn't ready to pick up where they left off, but she was willing to start fresh and move forward as friends. It wasn't easy, but it was the right choice for her. Eunice was finally in a place where she could look back at her journey without regret. She had fought through the darkness and found the light. With the support of her family, her faith, and her newfound strength, she was ready for whatever came next. As Eunice continued her journey, she began to see the ripple effect of her actions. People she had never met began reaching out to her, thanking her for sharing her story. It was clear that her journey had touched many lives. Looking forward, Eunice saw a future filled with possibilities. She had learned to embrace her journey, knowing that every challenge had made her stronger. The future was bright, and she was ready to shine. As Eunice walked through her hometown, she couldn't help but reflect on how far she had come. She remembered the days of uncertainty and pain, but now, those moments felt like distant memories. She had grown stronger, and each step she took now felt more confident. One afternoon, Mrs. Elizabeth received a phone call from a distant relative who wanted to visit. Eunice was a little apprehensive, as she had been keeping a low profile, focusing on her own healing. But her mother encouraged her to welcome the visitor with open arms. Eunice agreed, knowing it could help strengthen their family ties. Meanwhile, Leo had started his own journey of redemption. He enrolled in a program to better understand his past choices and how they had hurt others. Eunice heard about his progress through mutual friends, and though she was still unsure of their future, she couldn't help but feel hopeful for him. Eunice began to speak at local community events, sharing her story of survival and strength. It felt amazing to be embraced by the people who had watched her struggle. They offered their support, making her feel more connected to her roots than ever before. A few months later, Eunice and Leo met again. This time, it was not for a confrontation, but for a conversation about their past, their present, and their future. Eunice could see the changes in him, but she wasn't ready to jump back into their relationship. Instead, they agreed to remain friends and support each other in their individual journeys. As Eunice's career began to grow, she decided to move into a new apartment. It was small but cozy, and she loved the idea of having her own space where she could continue her work and personal growth. It felt like the perfect next step in her journey. Eunice stood on her balcony, gazing at the horizon. She had faced so many challenges, and had come out stronger for it. The road ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. She would continue to face each new day with courage, knowing she had the strength to overcome anything that came her way. Eunice sat in front of a mirror, looking at the reflection of the woman she had become. The scars, the struggles, and the triumphs all told a story of strength, resilience, and the power of self-love. She no longer sought approval from anyone. She had learned to love herself fully. As she smiled at her reflection, she whispered to herself, "I am enough." Her journey was far from over, but the path ahead felt lighter. The road she had traveled had taught her that true beauty came not from external appearance, but from the strength of one's spirit. She had learned to appreciate every part of herself, flaws and all. With a heart full of gratitude, Eunice walked out of the room. The sun had set, casting a soft glow across her apartment. She opened the door and stepped outside, ready to embrace the future, knowing that no matter what challenges lay ahead, she was more than capable of facing them. Thank you for joining us on this magical journey through the heart of the village. We hope this story has shown you the beauty and mystery that can be found in everyday life. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this tale with your friends. Who knows what other secrets we will uncover in the next adventure?